It is Thursday, March 6th, 2025. This is episode 58 of the Carlos Whittaker podcast, and welcome to Human School. Today, we're going to be talking to my new friend and your new friend, Joseph Thacker, which I love that his last name, if you take off the T, is exactly what he is. He's a hacker. That's right. We're literally talking to a hacker. Now, the fact that last week we had a man named Joe on the podcast, which, by the way, how incredible was that conversation? So good. And this week, we're just adding a S-E-P-H, Joseph, to the name. Joseph is an ethical hacker. What in the world is an ethical hacker? Well, when I think of a hacker, I think of, like black hoodie and black hat and black jeans and black Converse. And they're in a basement. I don't know, kind of like me right now. Maybe I'm a hacker. And they do bad things to people's computers and softwares and phones and all the things. Joseph, on the other hand, is a hacker, but he's an ethical hacker. I will let him unpack what that is. Friends, you're going to love this conversation. It is so interesting, so fascinating, and I just think you're going to love it. So why don't you sit back and enjoy this conversation and getting curious about somebody that breaks into government camera systems? That's right. Meet Joseph Thacker. Okay, Human School friends, I have my new friend, literally new friend, is in we've known each other for 45 seconds. Joseph in Lexington, Kentucky. Joseph, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so excited about this conversation because the first thing that popped up when we saw kind of your information was ethical hacker. And everything inside of me was like, what in the world is an ethical hacker? And it got me all in like I even wore my hacker outfit today. I've got
I see that you're in black.
I got my black hoodie and my black hat, and I'm ready to crack some code here, bro. So Joseph, why don't you tell us, just for those of us that have never heard the term before, can you explain what ethical hacking is?
Sure. Yeah. It's you're not actually that far outside the bounds of norm. People imagine us sitting around in black hoodies, typing on our computer, in the dark. And honestly, that's kind of true. Me and all my buddies have countless black hoodies. And maybe that's because a lot of the hacking companies that we end up hacking through, send those out as prizes. But I think honestly, we just love that aesthetic,
Of course.
But no, yeah. So ethical hacking is basically, you're breaking things to show those vulnerabilities to the developers so they can fix them, right? So you're doing it from an ethical perspective. And whenever you actually find that vulnerability, you report it to the company so they can fix it rather than you exploiting it for your own gain.
Got it. No, that makes sense. One of the terms that I think I read was you were a bug bounty hunter.
Yeah. So I'll kind of lay the groundwork because it's a few steps of logic. But so if you imagine hacking something as the fact that you're just breaking it to help secure it, right? We'll call that hacking. So then people often do that for a job called a penetration tester, where a company will come to you and say, hey, come test our security.
Okay.
And in that case, you're paid by the job, or paid by the hour or something like that. Bug bounty differs from that. You're doing basically the same thing, but it's really cool because it's results focused.
Okay.
So you only get paid if you find a vulnerability, and you get paid per vulnerability, per bug. You get a bounty per bug instead of being paid for the job. So if you're good and you can find a lot of bugs in a small amount of time, you can make way more by doing bug bounty. And then the other thing that's cool about bug bounty is instead of going out and having to find someone to do your testing for you, with bug bounty, you open it up to the crowd of a whole group of hackers that are all allowed to hack on it then because they've been given legal permission. And then it's just open around the clock. So it's continual testing, and it's a variety of strengths and skills coming from this large crowd of people.
I'm assuming that when a company does that, the bug bounty route, you're probably going to get to some vulnerabilities maybe faster going that direction.
Yeah, if you open it up publicly, you'll find out all of your vulnerabilities really quickly. You better have a pretty big budget. there's ways for companies to kind of reduce that load. They might run like a special challenge where there's a set amount of money, like they're only willing to pay out 10,000 in bounties, and so then they'll like open it up.
Okay.
Some bounties will come in, then they'll close it and say, "Oh, we're not open for any more," to kind of limit that. Because I mean, if your company has a lot of websites with a lot of vulnerabilities, you may run out of your budget pretty quickly.
Wow. All I think about when you hear bounty is, I think 70% of Americans are going to think of Dog the Bounty Hunter.
That's true. That's true.
We're just thinking, and if you think of like someone like that, they're kind of doing the same thing, but just obviously with humans.
Yeah. They're hunting people, right? In some ways, it feels a little bit like panning for gold, I think, sometimes when I'm searching for bugs, because there's a little bit of a luck factor with like, are you looking at something that's kind of new or that a developer just checked in a new change that's going to be vulnerable?
Yeah.
And so sometimes I imagine it more like treasure hunting more than bounty hunting.
But, I like that. That gives you a little bit more breadth, I think, in it. No, I love that. You have spent years getting paid to hack into major companies, websites, networks. What's maybe one of the most surprising or vulnerable things that you've ever found?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of different ones. Well, before I name a specific one, I will say that like even your largest, most secure companies like PayPal and Google and even new companies like OpenAI and stuff that are still, all of those companies are very secure. They have a very strong security focus. They still get like high and critical. So those are like the two kind of highest, signifiers of vulnerabilities. Yeah. They get high and critical vulnerabilities reported to them weekly, if not daily. So it's kind of crazy whenever you're deep in the industry and you see how much is like kind of insecure out there.
Really?
But at the same time, like those companies are still way harder to hack than smaller companies.
Sure.
And in general, like the world still keeps going, right? Like the world goes on. So like in some ways it's like a little depressing, but in other ways it's like, but we still get along just fine, right? Even with all these vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Maybe the craziest one was I was hacking a government agency as a part of like a government related challenge.
Okay.
And got access to all of the cameras in a specific building. I'll just say it. We could bleep it out. It makes it more exciting for the listener anyway. It was at the Pentagon. And so I was able to view all of the cameras in there with basically no authentication. You wouldn't want a bad actor getting access to that.
No, absolutely not. You wouldn't want that. It's funny because when I think when somebody that's not deep in the industry like you are, someone like me, that's like, you see on the news, like ABC World News Tonight, PayPal got hacked or some data center got hacked and all our information. I almost feel like I've heard it so many times now that as a user, it's almost like, I treat it as like, oh, well, the power went out in my neighborhood. It'll turn back on. And I don't really even think twice about it. Somebody like you, I mean, I would love for you to let us know, like, should we care more about that kind of stuff than we kind of do, because we hear about it so much now. We just kind of assume, well, someone will fix it. I don't know who's going to fix it. Someone will fix it and my dad will be safe. Like, is this something maybe we should be more aware of?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that, some people will call that kind of alert fatigue maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel similarly, of course, but I think, when you hear about those, you're hearing about that, compared to the vulnerabilities that I see and that I see reported all the time. You're hearing about that 1 in 1,000 where it was a bad actor and not a good actor who found the vulnerability. Right. And then not only did they find it, but then they also exploited it.
Yeah.
And usually it's just leaking your data. And so I would say, like, if you're a person of low profile, like if you're a person who no one's going to target you anyway, then the risk really is pretty low, besides maybe credit card identity theft, tax theft. I actually had my taxes. This was before I was even a hacker. I was just a software developer.
Really?
And I actually had my taxes fraudulently accepted by someone else, and it like mailed them the check for thousands of tax return dollars. Yeah, they do this all the time. So if they have enough information about you from breaches and stuff like that, they can actually request your taxes, and they have it sent to like some random PO box. Wow. And then they go and they're able to somehow cash that check. But anyway, so I mean, those are like the types of risk, like the IRS just reimbursed me, no big deal.
Sure.
But for somebody like you, or for other people who are a little bit more high profile, I think it can be a little bit scary, especially if you're a person who has a lot of people who might dislike you, whether you're a political figure and you have young kids, you don't like want them targeted. I think at that point it gets a little bit scarier.
Yeah. I do wonder that a lot. But knowing that there's ethical hackers like you, I think makes me feel like, oh wow, there's actually like good guys out there, doing this. You talk about maybe gathering with you got some hacker friends and you guys get together and I think you mentioned a conference, or maybe I read that on something earlier. Like, what happens at like a hacking convention? Like I'm just imagining like some of these like gaming YouTube channels where I watch like, Madison Square Garden is like filled with people in seats, and then there's people playing the game down at the bottom. Like, what do these hacking conventions look like?
Yeah. So there's kind of different forms of them. Like one, what you're kind of talking about is more of a convention, and I would say the biggest one's probably called DEF CON. It's really cool. It's in Vegas every year. Yeah, it's held. It backs up. So these two conferences happen back to back. The first one's called Black Hat, and the second one's called DEF CON, and they take place over the course of a week. And hackers and people who are interested in information security all meet up, and they share new vulnerabilities, new exploits, and it's notorious for for people not even being willing to bring their real devices. So people like bring burner phones because they're scared just walking around, they're going to get hacked. And stuff like that does happen. I remember walking around, they had like a malicious Apple AirPlay TV did like a notification. So they found some way to where they could send an AirPlay notification to like all the phones in the vicinity. If you clicked like, accept the, AirPlay my device to this TV or whatever, then it would steal your data.
No way.
So there's cool stuff like that going on. But I think maybe what you're talking about is called live hacking events.
Yes.
So these bug bounty programs or platforms like HackerOne and BugCrowd that I and my friends hack on, they will, if you're like a top hacker, you can get invited to come to an on-site event. So I've traveled to Denver, Miami, London, Malaga, Spain, and some other places. And so like you all come there, right? And you all do sit down and you kind of hack something.
Yeah.
And there's not really spectators.
Right.
The closest that I would think of that's like the spectator thing you're thinking of, for college students who like want to get into security, there's these things called capture the flags. And there's like these team-based capture the flag events that Google puts on.
No way.
And they make it visually appealing to viewers by making it a video game. So basically they have to hack the video game to beat the level the fastest. Or it'll be like an impossible video game that you can't beat except for through hacking. So the viewers actually get to like see something visually appealing, because watching hacking's boring. It's like just text streaming on a screen, right? But when you're hacking a video game and it's making your character do cool, weird things that they're not supposed to be able to do, it becomes visually appealing. So that does happen at like these kind of capture the flag hacking events. But no, the live hacking events are neat because a single company like Capital One or Salesforce or something will put on an event, or Epic Games. And then all the hackers come to that one location and they spend all of their time hacking on it.
Wow. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like I'm ready to watch that. Put a little music behind it. Like I'm in, man. I'm cheering for Joseph. I do think it'd make
an awesome documentary or something like that for like Netflix, something to put on. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I'll do that. I'll just follow Joseph around and interview you and all your friends, as you do that. I feel like I'm getting a grasp as far as like, okay, ethical hacking. Like I think I've got it. I think I see what Joseph and his buddies are doing and how it's helpful. But you actually like are leaning into, from what I know of you, more into just AI in general and kind of what AI is. And I think that, gosh, 2 years ago I would hear the term AI, and I'm like, let me tell you my perspective. Okay. Sure. Like 2 years ago, I was like AI, and here I am. I just wrote a book called How to Human 2 years ago. And I was like, this is the worst thing on planet Earth, and then today, 2 years later, I'm like, help me with 25 questions for Joseph that I can ask him on a podcast about, I've completely swung to where, I see the good in it, how I can maintain my humanity while allowing AI to possibly help. But I also feel like, oh gosh, man, like I'm just peeking into like I've just kind of peeked like this, and I'm looking into this gigantic universe called AI that I just am like 1 inch in. I'm not even like thousands of miles into it. And so like, I don't think I have the wherewithal to really understand what is happening. So I kind of want this conversation to grow a little bit. Let's start with just kind of your view of AI and what you feel about AI and all the emerging technology that's coming with it.
Sure. Yeah. So I started getting into AI about 2 years ago when those cool image generation models first came out. Right. You could like generate AI art. Lots of mixed opinions on those, but especially from artists, right? But then very quickly after that, the first ChatGPT dropped, and I just knew it was going to be a game changer. Oh, wow. Because as a technical person, like it would just write code for me instantly. Yeah. And that felt like, such a huge level up, such a huge time savings. And like you said, it's perfect for brainstorming questions, just like to get your creative juices flowing, to give you ideas that you can then riff off of. It's really great. So yeah, I mean, from an AI perspective, I think it's going to keep changing fast. It's already changing fast, but man, I know the first step, you kind of toe in the water is what you're talking about. Like you can do it, use it for ideation. You can use it for rewriting things and stuff like that. But the quality is just increasing pretty fast. Like when OpenAI released the deep research model recently, I've used it for a few different things in my life. Like we have a small Yorkie. Yeah. And they have like a collapsing trachea, like little small old Yorkies do, where like they cough sometimes, they kind of, whatever. So I asked AI, I was like, I want you to do all the latest research over the last like 10 years, like every research paper you can find on, collapsing trachea in small dogs. I want to know every possible prevention, every possible treatment, the recovery times for all that. And then, just wait 20 minutes and then out comes this like 10-page, perfectly structured PDF. And even that, I was like, I don't really want to read all that. I just summarize the main takeaways for me,
No way.
And then so it like took that away. So, I mean, I do think it's going to change a lot. Humans are kind of slow to, especially small and medium-sized businesses are kind of slow to adapt and evolve and embrace them. So I don't think we're going to see like really fast change. But I do think that in the, the 5-year mark, time frame, we'll see like a lot of changes.
Yeah.
As far as whether it's going to be good or bad, I think it's still up for debate. It feels a little bit to me like social media where a lot of good, a lot of bad, really hard to know how it's going to shake out,
Yeah.
But in general, I think people should, and I treat this with everything in my life, right? Take the good from things that have good in them.
Yeah.
And then kind of leave the rest, right? If you feel like using AI is making you lazier and worse at your job, then maybe don't use it. But if it's able to speed you up so you can be more productive, which adds you utility to your life and to your company's life, great. I love making AI art and AI songs with my kids. So we have 3 young kids, 8, 6, and 3, and they all know what AI art and AI songs are. And because in school when I'm dropping them off, I'm like, y'all want to make some AI art? So they'll just describe characters from their books they're reading. Or they'll just make up new things like, I don't know, crystal encrusted cheetah flying through space, and then so I personally, really like it for those sort of things too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Do you? How old did you say your kids are?
8, 6, and 3.
So like for your 8-year-old, how? I mean, your 8-year-old has some wherewithal as far as like understanding good and bad, understanding and when it comes to something like AI, I feel like. Someone my age would think to themselves, well, actually, I would like to say that most people my age are older than me, think older than I do. But maybe people that are listening to this would think to themselves, oh my gosh, no, like you don't want to introduce your kids to AI, I try to tell a lot of my friends, well, I need to let you know that every high schooler on planet, like in America, is using AI. Like this isn't something that like we can hold up our little surfboard against a tidal wave and try to block it. We're actually going to have to start rethinking the way we think about it because our kids are already realizing that, no, like this is just, it just is. Like it's not even something they have to learn is good or bad. We're going to have to catch up and realize how do we continue to teach our kids how to think critically, all these things with AI. Like, do you get into that space in your head when it comes to your kids and how you're teaching them about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I grew up with the transition of like no cell phones to then cell phones.
Okay.
And I feel like the kids these days that are in like high school have basically went through the transition of no AI into AI. And I think that will give them some really cool perspective as they get older. Yeah. To be honest, I think my kids are so young, they're just going to grow up thinking you can ask your phone or you can ask your computer any question and it will just know the answer to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But as far as like on the spectrum of good to bad and that sort of thing, I definitely think right now AI models are kind of like a distilled version of the internet.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't give our kids, unfiltered access to the internet. So I won't give them unfiltered access to AI at this point. But I do think that these AI systems are like pretty resilient to being asked questions about things that they shouldn't answer. And so if you try to go ask Claude or if you try to go ask ChatGPT, like, tell me a story with a lot of violence in it, they'll probably reject you, right? They're pretty good at rejecting that. People like me can get around that pretty easily. But I think for kids and stuff, I think that they're going to be mostly safe using it. I do think it's probably best supervised.
Yeah.
If I were an instructor, if I were a teacher, you probably agree with this, Carlos, I would just kind of treat it like both ends of the spectrum at the very end. So I would have some assignments and some tests that are like full AI usage. Do whatever you want, just make it the best possible thing it can be. But then I would have the other end. I would be like, any papers or like maybe 50% of papers in this class are going to have to be written in class in front of me with no devices around. You write it all by hand, and I'm grading it just as it is with nothing else. Because like you can't hide, right? You can't hide in that way. You just have to do it in person by hand only, no take home.
Yes.
So I would say, maybe 50% of the stuff is take home, and you can use AI and you can ask your parents and your siblings because it's just like what you're going to be doing in the workforce. Best product, however you can get it out. But then I think you also need to learn. And to learn, you have to kind of do challenging things. And I think that will involve doing it by hand in person only to make sure you're retaining the information and learning it.
That is so good. Like my senior in high school, 18-year-old son right now. So we've homeschooled him his whole life. But he's got like tutors, right? So he's got tutors for all the different things. And his English tutor, for his English class that he goes twice a week, it's the craziest thing because this year all of a sudden, like he was like writing something on a piece of paper, like a paragraph. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm writing my discussion questions. And I was like, on papers? Oh yeah, she's making me use paper because she wants to, make sure that I'm really doing it, without using, AI and all the. Right. And I was like, whoa! So she's actually even thinking about that, as well. And I wrote a book. People probably are like, Carlos, you're really fascinated with AI and all this stuff. But I wrote a book called Reconnected, where I didn't look at a screen for 7 weeks. Right, like I didn't look. Yeah. And I think that something
we love the documentary, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. What it did for me was I think give me a new appreciation for screens and a new appreciation for technology. One of the things that I feel like we have to be intentional about, which is kind of what you're talking about right now, is making sure that we're curating things that AI and screens are just going to take away from society, right? And one of those things is like wondering. One of those things is actually like not knowing. Tell me your thoughts when I ask you the question, do you feel like wondering is on the verge of being extinct and like not knowing things and like, how do we solve that? Like, or is that something we just got to get rid of?
No, I think you're right. And this is a personal struggle where like, I'm not going to pretend that I have this solved.
Sure,
My wife brings up that quote from the documentary all the time. She's like, Joseph, maybe you just need to be wondering, because I'm the quickest to look stuff up, right? I was always a quick Googler, and now I'm always a quick Ask AIer. So, but no, I mean, I really do treat it the same way. Honestly, this is probably why it connected the dots in your brain to what I was talking about with the assignments. I think we need to live life in both extremes. Yeah, like I think it's like, let's say you're studying for a test or you're studying your Bible, and like sometimes you need to be like, I'm going to get as much possible information. I'm going to look up every possible resource I can find online. I'm going to ask AI to explain it to 15 different ways in ways that I understand. And I'm going to teach it to someone so I can learn it. And then I think other times we need to be completely disconnected, right? Like, and so I hope that healthy humans are able to choose to like put down all devices, all AI, all everything, and have periods of life, probably both extended times where it's like weeks on end that it's that way. I think that'd be healthy for everyone with social media. Yeah. But then also maybe even times during the day, right? Where you take 1, 2, 3 hours a day where you don't use any devices either. Yeah. And I think that like that type of extreme will hopefully create like a really well-rounded and well-balanced both opinion and person. Yes. No, that's so good. And here's the problem with society is now literally homes are being built with showers that have like phone holders in the shower. People are taking their phones in the shower now, right? And it's just like, what is happening? Yeah. You mentioned earlier taking time to read your Bible, things like that. So you're a person of faith. You're a person that is working in emerging technology while reading this book that is thousands of years old that gives you wisdom from a long time ago. You follow the teachings of a man named Jesus that didn't have the technology that we have now. Right. Talk to me a little bit about being a person of faith, also working in this emerging technology. Like, are there like ethical concerns? Are there things that you bump against on a daily basis as a Jesus Bible believing Christian? I definitely think that you need to be. I mean, you probably know this from being like very active on tech. You definitely need to be resilient in the things you believe in because you get bombarded with ideas from all over the place. Yeah. Specifically, I think that the cybersecurity industry and hacking industry can sometimes be a little bit little darker, a little bit more. The line is not as clear about what's right and wrong, I think sometimes. In my profession, I don't really have any like real big ethical qualms. I am more of like a chaotic good type person, but I do think that there are still plenty of people who are like, in the industry who are more like kind of lawful good Christians who are like, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there's never any like strong lines that I need to cross in order to do my job. Like of the hacking and all the testing that I do is like fully authorized and allowed. Yeah. There are definitely a lot, like there are some interesting edge cases where you might know something is vulnerable. This is actually true in my own life. So with kids, I'm often getting signed up for like fundraisers, like little school website fundraisers, signing them up for like soccer lessons or soccer camp on these like really small websites that are often extremely vulnerable. And you can just tell by looking at them, like before you even do, like before you sign up or anything. And I do have some like some slight ethical concerns there with like, oh man, I know this is vulnerable. I'm not really allowed to test it. I'm not going to test it. But also I don't want to put mine and my kids' information in there because it's probably going to get breached or leaked or whatever, I kind of just like, and my wife says this too, I just put on my blinders and just do it anyway, and then try not to pay too much attention to it,
Wow. No, I love that. I mean, I feel like, gosh, every building I walk into now, like I feel like there's a screen or something that says, your image and your likeness can be used by just being in here. You're basically signing a contract saying that we can use your face. I'm like, oh my gosh, that kind of stuff's a little stressful to me.
Yeah, honestly, kind of funny. That was like one good thing about COVID was everyone was kind of like obfuscated for a while.
No,
couldn't identify you from masks on.
How do you see? I mean, let's take it even a step farther. How can you see AI as something that can even build or help somebody's faith or help the church or help Christians do what it is that they're doing?
Yeah, number one thing I think it's going to be useful for humanity in all realms is education. Yeah. Like basically we're all going to have custom private tutors that are as patient and calm and descriptive and able to describe it at any level and able to describe it at any depth. Like I was just talking about the deep research thing. I've actually been thinking it'd be really cool to just take something I'm interested in the Bible and be like, hey, go do deep research on this. Go look up every single commentary, every single reference, go back as far as you can. Yeah. And one really neat thing is like these new language models basically speak every language. So you can be like, explain it to me like by breaking down the Greek, explain it to me by breaking down the Hebrew, or like, there's a lot of church history about this in Latin. You use those archives to kind of do the research and then come back and explain it to me from Latin to English. I don't know. I think there's like a lot of really cool ways to learn anything, but that's going to be particularly true about faith.
That's great. Unpack the deep research. You've said this a couple times. Deep research. So is this like an AI agent, or is this a...
Basically, yeah. So ChatGPT now has it. I think probably only... Well, I want to say it might be pro users, but I think it's also free users. You just get way less. Like you only get 3 a day or 1 a day or something.
Okay.
But other companies are rolling it out too. So Perplexity has it. I think Gemini, Google's product has deep research now. But the idea is that the AI agent will like go away. Instead of answering you instantly, it will go away for sometimes 30 seconds, sometimes up to 30 minutes, depending on which model you pick and how you're using it. Yeah. And it will basically look at a bunch of different resources. Okay. It will compile all of them, kind of understand them and tease out the answers to the questions you want from those sources. And then it'll give you a big, long answer. It's usually longer than like a typical answer. And it will actually have inline citations that you can click to go read the original source if you like think it might be hallucinating or making up information.
I see. Okay, cool. No, that's good to know. Whitney, take notes on that. We're going to do some deep research on some stuff. One of the things that I love about our stories that are slightly parallel, maybe not parallel, maybe you're just behind me, but we walk the same journey, is that we both have children from South Korea.
Yes, we have two.
Yeah, my son. Did you adopt through Holt?
No, I think there was only 3.
Okay.
Ours was through, it was like originally I think it was called SWS or KWS, and then the name switched a few years later.
Okay.
But I know a lot of people who've adopted through Holt.
Sure, yeah. I just love to, just kind of hear your adoption story, if you don't mind real quickly, just kind of how that all happened.
No, yeah, that's, be happy to talk about it. And also it kind of relates to the hacking stuff.
Oh, it does. Great.
Yeah, a little bit. So my wife and I were missionaries in Haiti actually for a year and like 3 months. And before we went to Haiti, and then also while we were in Haiti, we wanted to adopt. But to adopt from Haiti, you had to be like 30 years old. And at the time, we were like 25 or 26. And so, we prayed and thought about a lot about adoption. We ended up getting pregnant with our biological daughter. She's our oldest, and she's the one that's 8 now. And so then whenever we were pursuing adoption, we were like thinking about it and praying about it. And my wife like kept having dreams about South Korea. And so we had been kind of we at that time didn't feel necessarily equipped to handle like a child with special needs.
Okay.
And so young, healthy babies were like only available at that time based on the agencies we were going through like Hungary and South Korea. And so we ended up at South Korea, which was really cool. And we fundraised for the first adoption. And so it was really cool. One kind of neat story there was we prayed that Samuel would be like a beacon of like hope and like a person who is basically witnessing to and kind of helping like the adoption, like other adoptees and stuff.
Okay. Yep.
And when he was in Korea, well, so we hadn't adopted him yet, but we'd gotten a referral and everything. He was a part of this program called Letters from Angels, where they paired them up with K-pop stars.
Oh, no way.
And we didn't know this. No one told us this beforehand. But my wife saw it posted on like the adoption group that like there was like these new photos from this program called Letters from Angels. And so he was like being held by this famous K-pop star named Kong Daniel, who won like the Korean
like the
American Idol.
Okay.
Yeah. There's like a Korean version of that, and he won it. And so anyways, there's like this K-pop star holding naked Samuel from whenever he was like a little baby. And so we thought that was hilarious. We couldn't like really tell if it was him or not. So we compared like our referral pictures to the pictures of him. And like he had the same ear. And we were like, I think that's Samuel. But he was like on the cover of like this Macy's magazine and was seen by like millions of people. And it was for promoting adoption. And so we thought that was really cool that we felt like God answered that prayer even before we like even got to meet him.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that was really cool. But we had fundraised for our first like our time in Haiti, and then fundraise for our first adoption.
Okay.
And so when the time came around where we were like, kind of doing family planning and deciding if we wanted to adopt again or biological, we felt like we wanted to adopt again, but we didn't necessarily know about the finances because adopting can be pretty expensive, as you know.
Yes.
And it was about that time I was walking through Kroger, and I looked down and I got a $30,000 bounty like that week.
No way.
I swear. It paid for most of the adoption.
Oh my God.
And it was like, well, I guess this is God saying, yeah, you're good to go. You're good to adopt.
So hold on, wait. When you say I got a $30,000 bounty, that wasn't like, oh, this is a $30,000 job that I can go try to find the bug, or you already found the bug?
Yeah, I found the bug and submitted it, and
wow.
you often never know if they're going to be accepted or downplayed or. And that was the biggest by far, and it's still the biggest bounty I've ever gotten. So it wasn't like this is a normal occurrence. Like I was like gobsmacked,
That's so good.
Yeah, and
so you were able to use that money to adopt your beautiful kids.
Yeah, and for our third baby, we didn't know if we wanted to go back to South Korea or do something else. And so we prayed about it and thought about it again, and we ended up going for Korea. I'm so glad we did. And one of the main reasons was we wanted our Samuel to feel like he had another person who gets him, who really got it. Yeah. And we wanted to celebrate, like just Korean culture and American culture in our family and in our home, rather than feeling the need to kind of celebrate 3 or 4 different cultures. So it's been great. I mean, we celebrate Korean holidays, and they have little hanboks they wear and all kinds of stuff. So yeah.
That's so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
We're at the point in our son's journey where his case files are going to be legally opened at 19.
Oh, wow.
So we've been waiting until he was 19 years old to go back, and we're going to be able to see everything that we haven't been able to see about his family. And so this year's the year that we're hoping to fly back to South Korea and look for his family. That's awesome. Yeah, we're hoping to take them back for the first time as well. Our son came with us to adopt our third, but besides that, they haven't been back, and we would love to take a trip every 3 or 4 years. So we're considering going this fall. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. I mean, this has just been so freaking awesome. Like I'm excited. I'm encouraged. I think it's going to leave the listeners maybe not as stressed out about AI, not as, not as worried about that kind of stuff. I would love to know though, maybe you can kind of leave us with this. You've been on both sides. You've seen the vulnerabilities of technology, but also you see its potential for good. Like leave the human school listeners. You are the professor, and they're about to leave. They've heard the conversation about AI and about hacking and all these things and technology. And I'm thinking people are going to be thinking a lot about this conversation. What would you like them to leave thinking about when we're done with the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, like the thing you just mentioned, really, like to be optimistic. Like, there's always been things to worry about, and humans kind of just we muddle through and we work it out, right? And I think that that's going to be true for this as well. I think that a lot of people can be really scared. They can have a lot of fear about this. Obviously, I have a lot of faith that things will go well based on my faith. But I think in general, people should have, like you said a lot earlier, about like the fact that, I mean, if it wasn't for like bug bounty platforms have found like tens of millions of vulnerabilities and have gotten them fixed through bug bounty. And so I think people should be, one, really encouraged that there are lots of great hackers out there working for the good and the securing of things. And then I think on the AI side of things, like there's going to be a lot of tremendous good that comes from it. And I think that if you kind of bury your head in the sand, you're going to leave all of that goodness on the table, right?
Totally.
And also, we need your voice out there. Like if you think that, being too dependent on AI is going to make us dumber, like go out and tell people that, so that, schools and so that your family will like learn to use it healthily in the ways we're talking about, right? Use it some, but then abstain some too. So I would just tell people to be encouraged and to think deeply about it before they kind of hate on either or have fear of one of those two things. Yeah, no, absolutely. So good. Joseph, thanks for being our guest teacher today on Human School. This has been incredible. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So good. I think one of the parts of that conversation that I didn't know I was going to love so much was just a conversation about AI and faith and AI and just humanity. And should we be scared of it? Should we go toward it? What do we do? Thank you, Joseph. That was really good. Are you guys enjoying this Human School season? I sure am. I am grateful that you're on this journey with us. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. Share the podcast with those you feel like it would benefit. And I'll see you next week on another episode of Human School.